Beverly Beem, Emeritus Professor of English, Walla Walla University. How in the world did you come here?
Oh my, a long time ago now. 76, so it's been a while. I knew a little bit about Walla Walla from just a few hints coming, wafting across the mountains, you know.
Were you perhaps stationed somewhere in the Midwest?
Yes,
at the time?
I had been teaching at 2 other institutions. But I remember one occasion in which a student had a Walla Walla bulletin sitting on their desk. And during a quiz, I just meandered over, picked it up, and sort of thumbed over to the English department and saw, wow, they're doing some interesting things there. And so when Helen Thompson-Zolber now called me to come interview, I was just thrilled. And when I came, within a year, I sort of decided this is a place I want to stay. Just sort of invest myself in this place. I wanted to put down roots somewhere. I had been in several other places to teach and had been also, you know, growing up in a worker's home, so acquainted with moving.
What were some of the places you lived growing up?
Well, I was born in Arkansas and grew up in New England and in Atlanta, the Deep South, and the Midwest, Texas, Nebraska, went to school in Michigan. So I feel like I've just been up and down the East Coast and the Midwest, and now here's my...
This was the one corner of the country you hadn't yet
hadn't been to. And it was wonderful.
Now, what did they hire you to come and do? What was your academic preparation? What did you come here prepared to do?
Right. Helen Zolber was leaving, and she is Renaissance, and that is my specialty.
What really made you want to do Renaissance Lit?
The real devotional poetry of the 17th century, particularly George Herbert and John Donne.
How did they enrich your soul? What really connected you with those writers?
Both of those authors just have a way of wrestling with God, expressing all the emotions of someone struggling with life, struggling with the issues of living and serving God.
You came here and you settled in, wow, this feels right. What made that feel right?
I think I found here a sense of community, a sense of family even, a sense of here is a group of people who care about what I care about, who work together. I love the connection between the university and the church. It was so close. You know, it seemed like that what you were doing for one was also for the other. And I appreciated that.
So walking into the church, your background in religious poetry and so forth, what helped you feel connected in that way that you describe to the church part of the community?
Well, the church part of the community, very shortly, I became an elder in the church, and that is something that meant something to me because back in those days, women were not elders very much. And here I found, I think, really for the first time, a place where women could serve in the church fully. I remember Mel Lang being here, and I remember him saying very frequently, you just can't do enough for the church.
And Mel Lang at that point is professor of mathematics.
Yes.
Chair of the Department of Mathematics.
That's
very
right.
busy with that.
And he became head elder. And so he was in that role too. And I just thought, yeah, I think I understand that. I want to do that too.
So you came here, you found a sense of community, you felt you wanted to stay. And at that point, did you kind of think, well, I'll be a Renaissance scholar here for a good long while? Did you start to branch out or have additional interests in different parts of academia? Where did that go?
It's so amazing how one thing can lead to another. That was certainly my goal, is to just be a Renaissance specialist, but at the same time, the department has needs, so they wanted me to become college writing coordinator. And that involved a marvelous challenge of going to the University of Iowa for a experimental program in which they were bringing in writing program directors from all over the country to just study the latest developments in writing theory, learning how it is that people actually write and learn to write, and develop writing programs in our colleges and universities that fit that and reflect that. And so Walla Walla College at that point developed a 5-year pilot program.
In terms of other content areas, as you progressed through your career, you developed additional interests on kind of along with that. Tell me about that a little bit.
And they do connect. Yeah. You know, one thing connects to another. And in studying Renaissance lit, of course, the Bible is a major, major influence on that. So I had a strong interest in biblical literature as well. And I did get several opportunities to go to seminars in biblical literature. One at Yale particularly opened up studies in the Bible in its ancient Near Eastern contexts. But it prepared me for studies with an archaeology friend who came, and that is Doug Clark. And we combined efforts in studying the book of Judges.
And why Judges? Why not Esther or the Psalms? Why Judges?
Judges, because they have great stories, lots of great stories. And what it was such fun for us is as we combined this interdisciplinary approach to biblical narrative and the book of Judges, we could almost provide a good model for studying the Bible that brings in all the questions that the different fields have to bring to a text. You know, what you learn about a text depends on the questions you ask of it. Students would come in thinking, one whole quarter for one book? But they will go away knowing that they have just barely touched the surface. And that's what learning is all about, to recognize how much you don't know, how much there is yet to learn.
Go deeper
Go
and
deeper. Always go deeper. You never get to the bottom of it.
Now, did you eventually develop an interest in something maybe more close to our contemporary times? Things that were maybe more directly connected to your Adventist setting?
Well, certainly always looking at what's going on in the church is of interest to me. And what's of interest to me is what's happening with women. I connected with a colleague, Ginger Harwood. We heard people just talking all the time about the early Adventist understanding of this. And we thought, well, what is the early Adventist understanding about this? And the only way to know would be to just go through early Adventist sources in a systematic way. We chose the Review and Herald because that was the flagship work for the representing the Adventist Church from the very, very beginning, 1850. And so we just started reading it, Volume 1, Issue 1, on through. And we were looking at what they were saying about women in leadership positions, women as public speakers. That was what the issue was in those days, because in those days it wasn't proper for a woman to speak publicly. And they were encouraging women to speak. And the question would always come up, how can you do that? It's just a scandal, just plain scandalous. But they argued and defended women speaking, not just Ellen White. They were defending all women's right to speak in church, in public.
Thinking of other things that happened outside of the classroom, how did you get involved in the larger issues of the university, how the university runs?
That was one of the things that appealed to me right at the very beginning. One of the things that made me realize Walla Walla is a very unique and special place. And that was this whole concept of faculty governance, or that was the name for it. But what it meant was faculty engagement in the work of making decisions in the campus. Committee work, lots of committee work. And I loved it.
Something else I was wondering about is you talked about community and how that translates into creating an environment where people want to work and want to be and want to connect with students. How do you use that sense of community to affect your decision making if, say, you're hiring a new faculty member?
Oh my, yes. I think that the English department, and I think the same is true with history, and with many departments, but we have been very, very careful to who we hire. And we kind of insist on what Gary Wiss labeled the 4 C's. That would be collegiality, competence in the discipline, classroom effectiveness, and Christian influence and experience. Those 4 are essential. And certainly part of the main one is collegiality. That means just working and playing well with others. People can thrive in that environment. And that's what it takes to thrive.
Reflect for me for a moment on the way that you translated your interest in Renaissance literature, in spirituality, biblical literature, and in writing into the classroom, and how you feel that sense of connection with your students, both when you were sitting with them and then as you communicate with them over the years since then. How has that dynamic worked for you?
Well, I'm so fortunate that the subject matter that I teach just lends itself to that naturally. And I loved the sense of connection, of personal commitment and devotion to academic thoroughness and rigor. They go together. There's nothing that is conflicting in those 2 interests. And I hope that came through in my teaching. It was certainly something that I worked to make come through. The most exciting thing in the classroom happens when you bring something that you are just now learning. And your students, then you present it to your students, they discover it with you, they share your joy in the discovery. And then that sense of constant ongoing learning.
And what happens one-on-one? As a teacher of writing, you spend so much time individually with students.
Yeah.
How does that affect your feeling about teaching and about connecting with them?
It is so individual because everybody's writing is so unique and so different. You do not have that canned, fill in the blanks. You have coming from the student's mind and heart. And that is the most important thing to connect. One of my favorite comments on a student evaluation came from a freshman student. Didn't learn much, just how to write. There you go.
What has the approach of retirement enabled you to do that you haven't had time to do before?
Oh my, yeah. Would I be bored? I was a little worried, but that hasn't happened, and I'm so glad for that. Opportunities for travel.
And you get to travel when you would have been teaching.
That's right.
Otherwise.
That's right.
Now, looking back over everything you've described, can you distill for me what it has meant to you to be here at Walla Walla University?
I think that what is so special about Walla Walla University is how much it allows me to live coherently. What I do at the university and what I do at the church are connected. What I do in studying Renaissance Lit is connected with spirituality. All of it fits together.